Jonathan, I'm not asking you to wade into politics, but I do think it's important to point out that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they remain silent on this since we had this third document discovery over the weekend.
And how could we fuck up?
I mean, they're dodging questions. This is when we have seen them asked on the record about this. Listen.
What did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible.
You ought to pin that on your chest. You're hypocrite enough to wear it.
No one is above the law, not even a president or a former president of the United States.
I warned you about that loopy cunt.
It's a large chunk of the Republicans, not all of them, but a large chunk have become what I call MAGA Republicans, Trump Republicans, with little respect for rule of law.
That ain't right, see? That ain't fucking right.
Okay. Okay, so that is some of what we have heard about classified documents being found and the importance of it. Why is it not the same?
Forces them to take a position, one side or the other.
And Jonathan, what questions do you have at this hour after you've been taking us through this breaking news? You joined us all throughout it last week.
What are you in the game for, Jack? If irritating me's the jackpot, you got the job done.
Well, you know, the Democrats are facing a rather unique dilemma in that they finally found a position you can't spin out of.
Well, thank you for saying that, even if you don't fucking mean it.
And this is a city where spin is an art form, but there is no way to spin this. There was an effort the first 2 days to say, oh, this is inadvertent, it's a few documents in a closet, let's not make a big deal out of it. By the fourth discovery...
I'd have bet U.S. currency that you'd been strangled and killed and you just didn't know you was dead yet.
And the other details that have come out, it's really impossible to spin this to say that it's not a very serious violation of classified rules and laws.
Well, was it money they got or dope?
But, you know, the position of the White House is really getting to be almost comical. You cannot claim that the residence is purely a private setting when you've used it to store classified documents.
That cocksucker can be bought for 2 pieces of day-old bread.
I mean, it stops being a purely private domicile when it's also housing classified documents.
And you fucked up the game is the central fucking present issue.
And indeed, some people have called it a crime scene, but most certainly it's an investigatory scene. This is a place where classified documents may have been held in highly unsecure circumstances for 6 years.
Because I'm sometimes that stupid.
Now, by the way, the saying that you don't have a log to the residence might seem like a good position to have.
Why don't you take this and get yourself out of that clown outfit?
It's not. It's actually going to be far worse. A log, actually, you can turn over.
A devious fuck nut.
The House of Representatives has legitimate interest in who was in that house.
Quality for a person to reach old age?
I'll buy the drink if you tell me.
Same as a dog keeps his nose. Don't poke it where it don't belong.
The minute you store classified evidence in your house, there is an interest in whether there are security violations or possibly being compromised.
What the fuck would you know?
So they can get that information from another source, and that source would be staff and family.
Get away from me before I cut your fucking heart out.
They can start to interview them, and I think courts will support that.
Not too fucking deep.
Because courts are not going to buy this argument that this is just one more private domicile on a quiet little street.
How long have you been hatching this fucking plot?
I want to dig into what you just said there, more on that in just a second, because what we did just play out was Nancy Pelosi. We basically turned back time.
That one takes surprise.
On the revelation of the Trump classified documents. When Pelosi said no one's above the law, you had President Biden saying, how can anybody be that irresponsible? Chuck Schumer.
Will they be passing the opium pipe like heathens between them?
You know, pointing fingers, but they have remained silent.
Yeah, nip that Sodom and Gomorrah shit in the bud. Huh?
In fact, this is the way they're responding, Jonathan. I'll tee it up again when asked about the Biden documents.
Right now ain't a good time to ask.
Do you have any comment on President Biden keeping classified documents?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
How could we fucking avoid it?
You seem much more measured about this than with the Trump documents, because you call for transparency with the Trump documents. You wanted lawmakers to have access to the documents seized from the former president, his residence in Florida, which it seems like you...
Sold out cocksuckers.
The bottom line is, I said that night, it's premature to comment on what should be done.
So, you got a reason to keep the chink boss happy.
Okay, so just to be clear, they're going to be put in a position pretty soon here to say something.
If we're going to act, we should do it in darkness.
James Comer, who I believe is going to join us on this program tomorrow, he's insisting there should be more transparency about this investigation process.
Makes two of us.
Jonathan, where do you fall on that? How much should the American public be privy to what we are learning, especially when it comes to who was coming and going?
Well, before I can answer that question, I better know who the fuck you are.
To the president's, the vice president, then the president's residence there.
You spit it out.
When these documents were sitting there, is that public information, do you believe? Should we know that answer?
You can help your delicate sensibilities by turning the fuck away.
We should be able to know many of these answers. It's not enough to keep on saying we've been transparent.
He's fucking right as rain.
When you really mean we're transparently uncooperative.
Go shoulder to shoulder with that cocksucker Custer's thinking when he headed for that ridge.
With the press. They haven't been transparent. They have refused to answer questions that they can answer.
How can you even ask me that?
There's no legal barrier to them answering those questions. So the questions are mounting, including the use of these lawyers.
I see Pinkertons coming in swarms.
You know, there was this initial question as to why you sent lawyers into this office in the first place.
The dam has broken, young man.
It does not appear that the University of Pennsylvania or the center was asking Biden to vacate the office. But even assuming you're going to vacate the office...
He won't come back here without a resolution. He'll know what's waiting for him.
What was the role of these private lawyers?
To avoid getting fucked in the ass by those legislative cocksuckers.
But that question gets far more serious after November 2nd. So after November 2nd, they have found highly classified documents.
Now I'll tell you something you don't know.
And the indication has been that at least some of these lawyers did not have clearances.
I'll apologize, and then I'll kiss them. And then I'll tie them off, and I'll shoot them up. And then I'll blow them with fucking soap.
And what was really surprising is in the last discovery, where they said they overlooked some documents.
You called the law in, Sampson. You don't get to call it off just because you're liquored up and popular on paydays.
One of the attorneys said that the prior attorneys did not have clearances.
No fucking paperwork.
Well, that means that almost 2 months later, you were still using uncleared attorneys looking for documents that you know have contained highly classified documents.
Perhaps I've chosen simple-mindedness over realizing a certain friend has used me as an instrument of purposes he concealed.
The other question is why it was overlooked. Most classified documents are within a folder that has a broad border, and over the top are these sort of all-cap statement of the classification.
You need to think about some of these things.
It's hard to miss. I've worked with classified documents for 30 years. The only reason you would miss that is if it was taken out of its folder.
I mean, how stupid do you think I am?
I don't know. I just met you.
And that would be a very serious thing here when they're arguing inadvertence. If someone took a classified document out of a folder, they clearly knew it was classified.
Here's that list you gave me. You hold it for a while.
And that it was at these locations.
Really important stuff there and big questions yet to be answered. Jonathan Turley on all of that for us. Jonathan, thank you very much.
You probably need a drink.